Cranky Life is the place to be now for the best sports talk, and it's free, yo. Cranky Life will be your guiding light by keeping you informed both day and night. Cranky Life, tell them. Cranky Life, heed them. Cranky Life, want them. Cranky Life. From the courts to the field, we'll never lose because Cranky has the hottest news. With expert analysis, we break it down. Our in-depth coverage is best in town. Cranky Life, tell them. Cranky Life, heed them. Cranky Life, want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life, where the sports is spicy and where we keep the discussion lively. Cranky Life, get to know the name because Cranky analysis is never lame. Cranky Life, give me my Cranky Life. I want my Cranky Life. Must have my Cranky Life. Whether it's football or track and field, you know Cranky is at the wheel. So join the journey through victory and defeat and subscribe and don't miss a beat of Cranky Life. Tell them, Cranky Life. Heed them, Cranky Life. Want them, Cranky Life. If you're from England or USA, from Kingston or Bombay, from Kenya or Canada, Lagos or Havana, visit Cranky Life. Tune into Cranky Life. Like up Cranky Life. Subscribe to Cranky Life. Cranky Life coming to you on weekdays. Cranky Life sometimes on Sundays. Pull up a chair and take a seat because Cranky will always bring the heat. Cranky Life. Me say fi tell them Cranky Life. Me say fi heed them Cranky Life. On them Cranky Life. Cranky Life will be around. Cranky Life is the best in town. Me say fi heed them. Me say fi want them. Me say fi heed them. Want them, heed them, want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life. Heed them, want them, heed them, want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life. Heed them, want them, heed them, want them, heed them, want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life. Cranky. Heed them, want them, heed them, want them. Heed them. Good evening, people. Good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. Thanks for joining the Cranky Live show, coming to you every weekdays. Well, I should say not every weekdays. Every weekdays except Friday. Monday through Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Sorry I couldn't be here yesterday, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Before I do that, I'm going to say bless up Chorus. Chorus, I think you're the one who say I only talk basketball. Tell me if I'm judging you incorrectly. So you will see from this program that I don't talk any one sport. I try to be multifaceted in my approach and talk a lot of sports. Bless up Andrew Hines. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you guys being here. We have, let me start early, people. We have 18 people in the watching, and we only have 11 likes. We should be having 18 plus likes already because some people jumping and jump out. Well, we have a lot to talk about. I know on my thumbnail I have West Indies cricket, and I also have the conflict within the JFF, which has been talked about quite a bit, and I'll dig into that quite a bit actually. So I'll talk through how we can find a way to talk through this rationally and come to some good conclusions on this. But the first thing I want to talk about is I was at a funeral yesterday for a very good friend of the family. Very, very sad occasion, actually. Someone who I respected dearly. I've known for over 30 years. The comments about the person were, read them out, kind, gentle, warm, humble, voracious reader, never complain. I have never seen more apt comment about a person and how well they live their life. And even when they were going through some very difficult times with their sickness, you would never hear a peep out of them. Always just a great person. And while I was sitting there, I was thinking, you go to a funeral sometime and people are giving all these accolades and great comments about a person. They were smart, They were humble. And you talk about, no, I want egotists. They were giving you, I think, about, woman money. Now I'm going to give them up money. Gone already. You get all these things. That was probably one time I've been to a funeral where everything said about the person and they were all laudatory comments were so true. So big loss to the family. I won't mention it on the air, but really a sad occasion. Glad I could have made it. Sorry to miss you yesterday, but it was for the right reason actually. So what we're going to talk about today? Bless up idea. Bless up Jason Guna. We're going to talk a little bit about the West Indies upcoming game this evening with England, but it's not going to be a long discussion about that. We'll touch upon the Euros, which have been going really well, and talk a little bit about style of play and possessing the football. We'll talk about the conflict, which has been rearing its ugly head in the press and more recently with one of the members of the famous entourage, who I think is holding the football hostage. And then we're going to talk about the more recent news where, and I don't watch this a lot, people, so you got to forgive me, not totally familiar with the person, but watch a couple of their videos. Sir P's comment around this whole saga. And that's going to be the last. That's the closing discussion. And then people don't take enough calls because I want to do about an hour worth of call tonight because you must have a lot to say. Because if you haven't see the Sir P video, watch it after this video. Now, let me tell you the summary and you can go watch it. I think Minty did something earlier, Coach Minty. I think he did a 9-minute video on it and summarized it really well, but I'll provide my own take on it. But it'd be good if you watch that video later because really interesting take he had on Leon and his decision making and what he has decided to do regarding the national team. So let's go to the cricket. West Indies are playing England tonight at 8:30. Obviously, it's the group of 8. There are 4 teams in their zone. I think they're probably in the not the most difficult of the zone. Actually, I would expect them and England to come out of the zone. They're not in the Australia and India area of this, and so I think they have been playing really, really well for some of the game, not all the games. I think the first game against Papua New Guinea, I thought they struggled with a team which is not the best team. They were really good against Uganda. Actually, they were they vacillated when it came to the game against New Zealand. They were struggling 20 for 4, I think 35 or something like that for 5. Then Rutherford went crazy and they came back and actually won that game. It looked like it was pretty easy, but if Rutherford didn't go to his exploits, it would have been a different outcome. And then the game, which I was shocked about, because I thought they would struggle with New Zealand, given New Zealand's pace and the quality of their bowlers up front. They did phenomenal thing against Afghanistan, which have given them trouble in the past. I think knocked them out of the last 50 World Cup, 50 over World Cup. If you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, because their spinners are really, really good. And Afghanistan, as we all know, is a war-torn country, but have really done well in cricket. So was surprised how easily we handled them. Pooran, I think is a brilliant player, but can be up and down like every West Indian batsman. Batted really well. Unfortunately, he got run out for 98, trying to go for a second run, which wasn't there, but he had to because he wanted to try to get his 100. And I've said from the onset of the tournament that bless up Marlon, thanks for being here, and Richard and Drew Ross and Chris, bless Chris. And Chris, I see you give me some hard time in the comment section, but I appreciate the comments. Whether they're hard comments or not, I appreciate them because I'm sure they're genuine. So I've always said that if Johnson Charles can bat through 10 overs, then we'll be okay. Having watched Johnson Charles for the tournament, though, he's struggling mightily. He's made 2 scores over 40, but every pitch he faces, you think he's going to get out. Like, he's just struggling. And I think his technique is really poor. Now, in T20, some people don't necessarily have technique. They just clear their front leg and go deep. They do all sort of trick shots to get the ball into the open space where the fielder is. But you got to have some technique. Get to the pitch of the ball. If you want to go in the air, you lean back. It's just like football. You want to ball to go on the ground, you go over the ball and hit over it and put your head down. Different from football when you're trying to shoot. So I'm not sure why somebody's playing so long for him. And why rate in terms of his strike rate is struggling so greatly. But hopefully he gets better in this round because we need him. Our batters are just, some days they're good and some days they're just awful. In fact, most times you watch West Indies bat, you're just like, every ball you think is going to be a wicket, the way we play sometimes. And England is a tough team, right? They got Archer back. They got Jordan. They have a few good players, and they're the defending champions. And they haven't hit their strides in the tournament yet. So should be a game this evening. I plan to watch most of that game. I won't say every single minute, but most of that game. So that's it for cricket. And look, we should be proud of the West Indies because we know, bless our parish council. Thanks for joining. We know they are, they've had their ups and downs over the last 30 plus years. We have done well in T20, won 2 of those in this century. Long form of the game, we should just give that up actually and focus on T20 because even 50 over we struggle. Anything we have to bat too long is a challenge for us, frankly. So I think T20 we love power hitting. We don't get singles. You know, one of the things people talk about in T20 is shouldn't have any dot balls, meaning you shouldn't have any balls that you face where you don't get at least a single off. And we are great at getting dot balls, but we also great at putting the ball over the fence without it touching the ground. So let's see how that worked out. I'm glad to see Rutherford get some runs because when he was in the IPL, I don't think he played a game. He was on the bench for the whole season and yet come and play so well against a very potent New Zealand attack. I think New Zealand's strategy was flawed because they had their worst bowlers on the back end. You got to have save some bowlers for close. You want good bowlers up front because obviously in the power play, you want to restrict them like we do with Hossein. But you do want to ensure that in the back end, when people are just swinging for the fences, that you have good bowlers who can restrict the number of runs. And I don't think New Zealand did that well, but they're going home. Pakistan is going home. The shock of the tournament so far has been the U.S., who's it's where you see immigrants work really in the U.S. because it's all immigrants on that team, and they've done phenomenal to make the second round. Most people don't even know, cricket is played in the U.S., so it's interesting. Thanks, Mikey. I'm trying to do everything. Well, not everything. Trying to do a lot of sports, whether it's football, basketball, apart from baseball, and I should say Mickey Mantle. No, talk about Mickey Mantle. The name is slipping me now. Great outfielder, Willie Mays, the great outfielder, who was a phenom, died in his 90s. Actually, Willie Mays. Thanks, Jason, saved me. Willie Mays died recently. At 93? Renowned in baseball. But I used to follow baseball when I first came to this country, but somehow my interest dissipated, just went away. And I mainly focus on NFL, basketball. Obviously, when the EPL became more popular here and you could see it more on TV, that took a lot of interest, and it's been taking more and more interest from the U.S. But condolences to Willie Mays and his family, and a big loss especially for the Black community, actually, because he was a good example for people. So we go to the Euro now. We transition from cricket, and it's gone well so far. And when I want to talk about the Euro, 3 games played today. I find the games really interesting. I haven't seen any truly weak team. If you watch Scotland against Germany, when they look out of sorts, you watch them today playing against Switzerland, and they look like a decent team, could have won the game. But except for that defender playing the ball blindly back, which you should never do in football, it's a crime. And that great goal being scored by Shaqiri, who is known for doing that. One time, didn't look, pigeon, as we call it. Great goal. I think Germany is playing like a home team. They look good. I know Germany has struggled over the last number of tournaments. I think they've struggled since the 2014 World Cup. They haven't done well in most of these other tournaments subsequently. So they have done really, really well. Maybe I'm getting my World Cups mixed up. But the one in Brazil, where they trashed Brazil 7-1 and they won that World Cup with Ozil and a bunch of those players. And so it's great to watch a Euro where it's very competitive, even though we really haven't had any upsets. But some of the major teams like England and France have somewhat struggled, actually. And today's games, Switzerland struggled with Scotland. You think they would probably smash them, given how Germany treated them. I thought Hungary wasn't great today, and Germany played well. And the shocking game to me was Croatia. They dominated the game. Here's what I find interesting, people in football. So maybe when they played Albania, maybe they were just playing deep and playing coy. But they weren't getting out of their own. They weren't doing counterattacking. They were just playing. They scored, and they go deep block, right? Croatia is dominating. Like, they can't get the ball. But when they get to the 18, like we saw with Dominican Republic against us, they run out of ideas. So they came back and scored 2 goals in about 2 minutes later on in the game. And you thought they're going to, you know what? They're going to still dominate the ball and close it down. And shockingly, the game changed. It's amazing the game changed. Thanks to Jason Gunnar about Slovakia and Belgium, but some people will tell that Belgium are choke artists, so it wasn't shocking. But I think Belgium is the better team, and I think Belgium will make the last 8. That's my view anyway. Because I do think they have a good team. So it was amazing that the game changed so dramatically, and Croatia could have lost. Amazing. I find the Euro interesting. Here's what I also find the Euro, and I'll take some of your comments after I make this comment. Every team I've watched, at some point during the game are trying to play football, are trying to keep the ball, are trying to play from the back. Even the Slovakias of the world and the Albanians of the world and the Hungaries, everybody's trying to play football, which is what we've been talking about in the channel, which is we play KP football, what I call it. We kick it long and hope. Everybody realizes in football, if I have the ball and you don't have it, you can't score. And if I have the ball, it gives me more chances to go forward. So, the concept that we have employed here for the Reggae Boys, we're playing 2 center forward. We go long from defense. We bypass the midfield, even though because we're saying we don't have a midfield. I'm not sure that's totally the case. Our midfield needs a lot of improvement. If you don't give them a chance to play the ball, you never have a midfield. So I found that really interesting, actually. So hopefully, our football will improve. And I'm curious to see how we play in Copa, because Copa, we're playing better teams than in CONCACAF. We can't keep the ball against Dominican Republic and Dominica. How are we going to keep the ball against Mexico, Ecuador, and Venezuela? I'm curious to see how that works out. So before the game, so Cranky in America, you make up these names to describe the game. What names am I making up before the game? I'm not making up any names. So it's interesting that how these games are going in the Euro, where Mbappe thought it's the best competition, better than the World Cup, given the level of competition. Big up Reggae Boys community. I think we all need to. Football needs to. People want to be entertained in football, right? They want to be entertained, and it can't be I just kick the ball along and hope. That cannot be the case, and that's what I'm seeing with the Reggae Boys a lot. And we get a lot of grief because Rudolph always tell me we're playing to our strength, and I think we're playing. I don't know what we're playing to, but kicking the ball along is not your strength. Finding your teammate is your strength. So it'll be interesting to see how we play in Copa. But the Euro has been good, actually. Croatia probably is a surprise, given how well they've played in the last number of tournaments. And I don't think they're going to make it the next round, because given all those goals to Germany and they're not winning today, that may be it. Obviously, you have the top 2 teams in each of the 6 zones that go through, and then the 4 best third-place team. You want to keep your goal difference down to allow you to get a good chance to go if you don't make the top 2. So we'll see how that works out, but it should be interesting. So, but the Euros have been good. I've watched a number of games, and I'll continue to watch games. The next round would be even better, because we have played the first round of matches. These are now starting the second round of matches, and there's one set in this round remaining before we go to the second round. But I think it's been good. It's been interesting. The goal by kid from Turkey? That was a brilliant goal. The goal today in the Switzerland game was a brilliant goal. So we've had every time I watch a game, they're saying this is the good goal of the tournament, and then we get a better goal in another game. So it'll be interesting going forward. I know before the game, I'm not making up names, but the names are slipping as I go along. I know the players, but somehow all the names are not coming back to me. But I'm not making up. They're in the same ballpark. They all start with the letter. So S for Switzerland. He plays in the MLS now. Shakira. What's his name? Shakira? Trying to remember his name. He played for Bayern Munich, and he played in England, and he's played now in MLS. He's playing well. Bless up Kadeem. Chorus saying England's problem is that they have 2 solid starting 11, and that puzzles. They call him Southgate, Northgate. England's problem is their expectations are overrated. So every tournament they go, they say they're going to win, they're going to bring it home, and they don't. Bam, never start the nonsense, Bam. Never start the nonsense. I might try to listen to Bam. Me control the microphone, not Candy. So nobody have the nonsense. This is not coach's death channel. I'm not good tonight to them. In a better mood today. Yesterday was after the field, I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a good mood today, so we won't go there. Ugent is saying, no professional organization worth its salt would tolerate such a blatant conflict. Directors have a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of organization and your personal interest. Well, I think, look, if we go to what we're talking about, the conflict, which I will talk about in depth in a little bit, the conflict is real. The conflict needs to be managed. I think the conflict is going to be there. Bless up Sonia, bless up O'Neill. I think the conflict is going to be there. And people, we only have 40-something likes. Please hit the like button. The conflicts are not going anywhere. They're going to be here. The question is, how do we manage the conflict, make the process transparent, get rid of the view in the background or by individuals that, you know what, things are not on the up and up. They may not be fair. As people, we need to have transparency. You hear me and Speed always arguing about that transparency, that T word. And that needs to change, actually. But I'll talk about that a little bit in much more depth. And I love your comments on this. Richard Crawford is saying Leon Bailey fire. So Richard must have watched the Sir P video, which I'll talk about also. I did summarize some discussion points for Sir P video. Young Kings Z, I'm going to say entertainment, is saying, I may maybe butchering that before the game, like I'm butchering players' names. England's going nowhere in the tournament, and it's my team. I'm not going to say that, actually. England is a good team. They came into the tournament concerned about their defense, especially at left back and center half, given Maguire is out and Shaw is injured. Before the game, are those names correct? And Shaw is injured. But they have good players with Bellingham, with Rice, who before the game loves as a player, with the player of the year, the Writers' Player of the Year in Phil Foden, with Kane, who is the top scorer in the German league, with Saka, who's one of the top goal contributor in football, regardless of age. John Stone, who plays for City, Walker plays for City. So they have a lot of good players, right? A lot of good players. And the expectation would be, if they have such good players, then why wouldn't they win? I think what people fail to realize is, and this is a bias by even us as fans, is that not because you play in the EPL, mean the other leagues don't have good players. League One, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga. They're good players in those leagues, and that's where you buy a lot of these players from. And when players go to their national team, a lot of those same players may play in the EPL, they play for those national teams. And they also have good players playing in their domestic league, if you're from Spain, La Liga, for example. So when you aggregate those players in national team, it doesn't necessarily say that, you know what, because England have players we watch every day or every week, that they're going to be the better players. Bam is saying they even have Cole Palmer on the bench. Now, the question was, and a lot of analysts were suggesting this, was that Saka should be replaced by Cole Palmer, given Palmer had like 21 goals for Chelsea, but frankly, people half were penalties. Saka is a proven commodity, both in the EPL and for England. And so I could see why Southgate's play him. The question is, here's what I don't understand in football, people. You know, back in the days, because a number of you are very young, you know, back in the days, you know, right footers play in the right wing and left footers play in the left wing. That's how football was. And it worked. We seem to believe that no left footer can play on the left wing in today's football, except for the left back can play out left. But left footer can't play in the left wing, right? Because you want to be able to cut in and shoot, and they don't have right foot and vice versa. That's nonsense, people. Regardless of what foot you use, you can play in any wing, in my view. And that's part of the problem why you may play Foden on the left instead of Palmer. And I think either he or Saka could be effective on either wing, frankly. So I don't buy that notion. And I think Foden is better 10 than he is a winger. And he showed up in the tournament. He was in and out of the game. Don't think he played well. Thought he should have been taken out of the game. But they chose to take off Bellingham, who was tired. And by the way, people, how good is Bellingham? That kid has the entire package. not only is an offensive juggernaut, he also plays defense. He's rugged. He's skillful. You'll really see a skillful player play so rugged with maybe even disregard for his body. And that's why he probably will get injured, because he plays with a certain vigor, certain energy, certain commitment, certain level of strength, which is unique for a player. If you think about players like Zinedine Zidane, for example, Zidane didn't play a lot of defense. He was often awful when awesome. I meant when he gets the ball. I didn't see him as one of those people who could be tracking people and putting in tackle and sliding in. And Bellingham, he's even more impressive outside the playing field than he is on the field, because you hear him interview and he sounds like a 40-year-old senior executive being interviewed versus a 20-year-old player. And I think that's something that footballers, when you're going through your different stages in life, should go to school, should learn, should develop intellectually along with the football field. Because that roundness of an individual, that completeness of the person, that transition to the field does a lot for you. Help you make good decisions both on and off the field, which we're going to talk about later, about some people making poor decisions off the field, even though they may be good on the field, right? You need to do both, because it helps you in your well-being in all aspects of your life, in your football life, along with your personal life. And I'm not sure we a lot of times when I used to go to school, actually, and subsequent to that, the people who played sports don't really go to class a lot of times. They skip class, or they go to take the easy class. We have more exceptions who don't do that versus the norm. This is more the norm of people not going to class or not spending time in the class as much as they should as footballers, versus, spending as much time in their books as they do on the football field. And they don't realize how much it hurts them later on in life, because when their playing days are over, if you don't make a ton of money in the sport, what do you do? And even the ones who make a lot of money, they don't keep it. And not just for football, it's in other sports also. They don't know how to keep their money. They don't know how to manage their money. They don't understand how money works. And each of you, if you're young, you should get these things called like investing for dummies or finances for dummies. Doesn't mean you're a dummy. It's the name of the title of the book. It's mainly saying it's an introductory course in these things. We need it all in our lives in general, but those in sports who have ability to make fun should really go through those process of learning these concepts and the way of thinking about investing, thinking about saving, thinking about managing your money, because it hurts you later on in life. But anyway, I won't preach on that. Maybe at some other time. What is going on for you if Speid is out? What is that? Speid is not going in. First of all, people, no, I don't know Rudolph that well, because he was to me interview Rudolph. I think I know Rudolph. I don't know Rudolph. Rudolph and I met through this forum, and that's where we mainly communicate through these forums when you see me with Rudolph, right? I asked him to come interview with me. He graciously accepted to do so in the middle of the night to do so. I appreciated interviewing him, and I appreciate all the people who come on as panelists or interview. That's how it should be. We should respect each other as human beings. But if Rudolph is out, doesn't have anything to do with my life. Right? But I think Rudolph has quality and ability, and Jamaica ain't got a ton of that on the island as much as you guys think they do. Don't get it wrong. So we can talk about J3 also and some of the conflicts there, which I'll touch upon in this discussion. You guys like to beat certain people because it's easy to beat from afar, but you don't look to all aspects of what we're talking about to make a better informed decision. So I'm not buying some of the things that people are saying, but Rudolph is who he is. Rudolph is who he is, and he's done well and will continue to do well. And as I'm saying in Jamaica, we don't think him going away. So no can beat up on the mouth all no want, and no can get him out. And especially since they won the election, the team that he supports won the election fair and square. So I think you guys should get on board instead of protesting, help to provide ways of helping the program, and to maybe help people like Speid sort of think about things a little bit differently. But they were elected through the process for election, whether it's Ricketts and Speid and Chung and everyone involved in JFF. So I suggest you guys just, as we do when Trump became president, sit back and enjoy the ride, because they ain't going nowhere. And not everybody hates Speid, by the way. Some people don't like the man for whatever reason. I think he's a very bright person who he and I have our differences, but he has qualities which are needed by the country. So I know some of you give me beating about your speed money, your speed this and speed that. Hey, I like talent. I'm a talent. I'm a slave for talent, and wherever that talent resides. And if you can get that talent, harness the talent, and the talent works well for you, then that's great. So let me see if there are any comments here before I jump into this whole conflict situation. So God bless. I'm not going to do a finance blog. What I will do actually is I will do it's more for, and I know finance are the one where you make most of the money in YouTube, and I've been told this quite a bit, finance channel. But I'm so socially conscious that I need to do a more holistic channel, separate this thing from sports, but incorporate a lot of different things, whether it's criminal justice, whether it's finance, whether it's politics, whether it's what happened in the social environment, whether it's how we engage as people, what's happening globally. I try to be broad-based in my thinking and how I engage and what I do in life. And I want to talk about a lot of different things, whether it's the war in the Ukraine, war in Gaza. I want to have some of the discussion. I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert in all of these subjects. I know enough to be dangerous, but I want to bring on people and have dialogue and engage with you to talk about these things. I spent a lot of time working in financial services, so I think I have some idea what happened in that space. We can talk about that. What is how you interview, how you write resumes, whatever it is. I want to touch upon them and do series about this. I also want to do some series in sports. So I did talk to Rudolph about having what we call a coach's corner, and we'll talk about football, but in a very structured and well thought out way, not just jumping all over the place on this. So maybe it's a series, maybe it's a 10-part, 20-part series. I got to get on his calendar to do so and start and plan this out. But when I come to you, well organized, well thought out, and talk through, I'm going to call it, put in quotes, coaching. I also want to bring in Andre, who's also in the chat, because he has an academy, and talk through some of these things. Because I think we've always been told that YouTubers don't know football, even though some of us watch football all our lives, listen to all the experts, all the so-called analysts, read books on the sport, think about strategy. We've been told we don't know football. So I want the experts to teach us football, and we can all sit here and learn. And it's memorialized in this digital space where it can be where people can pull it up, and it's going to be interesting. They can review it, critique it, provide their own perspective, disagree and agree. I want to do that. But I do want to bifurcate my two channels between one which is more socially conscious and one I consider more sport and more fun. And when I read Sir P's description of his channel, he said his objective is to better Jamaica, the country. And by the way, Sir P has about 300,000 subscribers, and I can't even get 1,000. And people not treat me bad enough. I only have 59 likes. I will never get to any place decent if we not hit the like button. And if you're here, I'm at 7. I mean, check my subscriber number. I think every second of the day, it's sick. Actually, it's sad. It's really sad because I'm trying to get to 1,000, and then 10,000, and then 50,000. That's me. If I do something, I'm all in or I'm all out. So, and I said to somebody the other day, if my channel don't get to a certain place by a certain time, I'm just going to move on and go do my other blog, because I know the other blog is going to draw people, because it's going to be to a much broader audience. If the sport people them some cranky don't want you talk, then me just come into the sports space and jump on to the social space. Because I mean, know me will get bloggers. We know we have heated discussion. We know it will run really well because I have a lot to say about a lot of different things. But I love sports. I breathe sport. I eat sport. I drink sport. So you know what? I want to talk sport. But yeah, King said me get you in time. Hey, King, he's a very impatient person. You know, my friend and my family tell me impatient. We put in enough time in this. I said, well, I now go as fast as I expect it to go. But we'll see what happens. I'm not going to touch any Bailey comments, people. You make Bailey comments. That's the last thing we'll talk about. So I'm non-touchers. Yes, come on, touch the Sir P video. So we are 30 minutes in. Let's talk about the conflict of interest. Now, what is a conflict of interest? What we have in the public domain now is the view that one of the stipulations in Bailey's, is my understanding, so don't quote me on this, in Bailey's stay away from the national team or return to the team, and there are, I think, about 5 of them. Some about, what class I fly when I fly for national games, whether it's first or business class. I want my own room in the hotel. I want security. But one of the interesting one, which to me have nothing to do with the player, is that they need to change the technical director because he's conflicted. Now, what do you know what that have to do with the slice of bread? I have no idea. The person who is the management for the player may have his conflict with that person, and trying to use that player as he did with his own son to be in the national team when he was withholding his son's services. And someone, not a pattern, someone a hypocrite in a star. One of the biggest hypocrite on God earth. If any of them foreign player they want to call them, meaning the overseas born citizens of Jamaica, was to do anything that this player does, only not beat them so hard, they have to go back in their country. They won't even come back. Won't not beat them. But because players born locally, I made the permit soapbox today now. Can I come ready today? Ready for y'all now. We want to push back on them thing. Yeah. If was any of those players who not beat them so bad, if Gray, Antonio, any of them do, any of the player do, anything with them do, them now come because them can't different room. Them now come because them can't fly first class. Them now come because the technical director have changed and like how them go on. Only that beat them not to sod. But today, me a join the Serpy, me call Bunwagon. Not bandwagon, me I call Bunwagon. Because people who deserve to get bun, forget bun. That means they should be chastised, criticized for their poor behavior. I mean, I join the Bunwagon. But we'll talk about the Bunwagon later. We'll go to the conflict. Now, the conflict that is mentioned as one of those criteria for changes to enable the player to return is a genuine conflict, people. Let's not get it twisted. It's a genuine conflict. It's a genuine conflict. And I'm not sure if Rudolph going to like me saying this, but it's a conflict. So here's the description of conflict. Conflicts of interest occur when an individual's personal or professional interests could potentially interfere with the impartiality of their official duties. So that means if you're the Prime Minister of Jamaica and you have conflict, whether it's personal conflict or conflict as part of being a Prime Minister, it can interfere with your role in terms of executing your responsibilities impartially. That is a no-brainer. That's a fact. But here's the thing, people. There's conflicts all around you. And there's conflicts in life in general. And there are conflicts in every industry. Now, some conflicts you should avoid and you can avoid. Some conflicts you can avoid giving your business, but you should manage, and there are ways to manage them. And I wrote a paper for an industry group back in the UK when I was in the UK in 2012 about conflicts that you may have in the asset management industry and how you manage those conflicts. I was trying to find a paper today, but I can't find it. You know, when you get a little bit older, you get a little bit senile. I seem to be. But it's trying to show, and part of the what if you read regulatory, the FCA or the authorities for finance in the UK, SEC here, the Fed here, they'll talk about conflicts. But what they will tell you is there's ways to manage conflict. And some of the key aspect of managing the conflict is that we'll talk through them is how you make sure you mitigate the risk associated with conflicts. In the context of sport, the issue of conflict becomes very sensitive when you hold multiple roles that conflict and influence each other. So, for example, Rudolph being the major shareholder in Cavalier, the coach of Cavaliers, and technical director for the JFF, no one can say that's not a conflict because it is a conflict, right? So if we're saying, look, Rudolph is not giving up his roles, the JFF want Rudolph to be part of the organization, then the JFF need to show how they're effectively managing that conflict. They have to. So a technical director is going to oversee development of football, implementation of strategy for the national team. They may be involved in squad selection, maybe involved in player selection, maybe involved in guiding coaching staff. And they have to make sure, they're trying to make sure the overall performance of the team is going to be success. But if that same person also manages a local team and they can directly or indirectly influence which players are selected, then yes, it's a conflict. And yes, the JFF need to manage a conflict. That's a no-brainer. That is not rocket science, right? Now, Rudolph will tell you he has no input into some of these things. But someone will say, really? And you're going to be skeptical. And you should be skeptical. Now, I think what the JFF should be doing is saying, you know what? Here is the process, how the process works, right? And here are measures we have taken to mitigate the risk associated with the conflict that's inherent here. If you're not going to say, you know what, Rudolph, you can't have these conflicting roles. You can't be coach of Cavalier, a major shareholder, and be on the technical and run the technical committee for the JFF. That doesn't work. Then that mitigates the conflict, or I would say even eliminates the conflict. Because sometimes you can't eliminate the conflict, you can mitigate it, meaning you reduce the risk, but you can't totally eliminate it. So you can eliminate the conflict by not having people do conflicting roles, or you can mitigate the conflict. Now, here's another example. I would go to show you conflicting roles. You hear more recently with the J3A about the situation with the relay team and the uproar around the relay team, and the fact that for the relay team, we didn't make the 4x4, and there's a lot of arguments surrounding that, which is got to have the right coach there. The process is not independent because some coaches have athletes running there, and they want their athletes to run the relays because they're going to ultimately get part of the compensation. Well, in athletics, those conflicts given, and you hear Fana come out and talk about some of these things, and Fana sound hypocritical sometimes, actually, because in the same thing that he's saying, well, players are not going to be running at their peak in this time, given the Olympics coming up or major events coming up. And then the question says, then he's saying you got to pick your best team, you got to have coach can do it. But you can't have it both ways, Fana. You can't say your athletes are not going to run now because if they're running for individual events, not for relays team, but then say the J3 is incompetent what you're doing when you guys are not providing your athletes. And if you have an athlete, if you have a coach from a major camp who is the one picking the athletes, and his or her of athletes that can run in those events, then that's a problem because he or she's going to favor their athletes, especially if the competition is close. So how do you avoid those conflicts? You have to have processes and rules and measures to mitigate the conflicts. And by the way, those conflicts those are just two conflicts. Conflicts permeates our society. Permeates it. The question is, what do you do? And you got to find ways to do so, right? To mitigate the conflict. So the player bias, the resource bias, the coaching situation, they're all going to manifest themselves as it relates to what Speid does, as it relates to the JFF. And if that's not going to change, just like in athletics, they got to be able to mitigate that risk. In athletics, for example, someone say use high school coaches, and people like Fana will say, well, they're not qualified. So you don't have solutions, but you have criticism. Provide solutions. Provide feasible solutions. Because the solution I heard Fana providing with that athletics didn't work for me. So if you're going to criticize, please, as part of that process, especially if you're involved in the sport and you are a renowned world figure, you have to find ways to provide measures that are going to really work, and people will see that it's transparent. And even if it's conflicted, at least you have measures to make sure it's so transparent that it's not going to receive the same challenge and skepticism as it does today. Right? So it's interesting. So we're going to go to my suggestions here at some point, but I want to take some of your comments on this. Yes, Reverend Morris, Speaker of the House, which the conflict was apparent before the person started running for office, much as they get the Speaker of the House. This is as big a conflict as you can ever think about, guys. We're talking about conflict with Speid. Look at what Reverend Morris just put here. Speaker of the House and Prime Minister. Can there be a bigger conflict in Jamaica? I don't know if you focus on and just stop focused on Speid alone. I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on the Speid situation, but there are other things that are out there that should also be a focus. And sometimes we are not being fair. As I said, doping over frightened, so no focus on people, no think we can beat up and get to it, but we can't focus on other people, which is not fair. It is not fair. So, and it also, here's another thing, people, which is interesting. So the person who ran the Phoenix organization saying Speid should go because it's a conflict, right? One. Two is that person aligned themselves with Raymond's team, who was running for the JFF, role of JFF, because they wanted to be part of either the coaching staff or the head of the technical committee. So when they get into power, were they going to give up their academy? Were they going to give up Phoenix, people? And if they weren't, wouldn't they be conflicted? So that's what my confusion comes in, actually, which is Peter Mystic. Me not take call it, me have to go through this thing first, but me have to call in the next 20, 25 minutes. Me have to do this first with conflict. Then me do the SRP thing, and then the phone line open. But I will put the phone line up, actually. You know what? Let me start running it now. Because I'll take the call, Peter, but just give me a chance to just go through this, then I'll do so. Yes, Chris, but Chris is not unique to Jamaica. You know, Chris, let me just digress a little bit and say this. Clarence Thomas, one of the Supreme Court judges in the U.S., and U.S. is in my first world countries, has been accused of taking a ton of gifts, private plane, him never get tuition get paid, him go on private plane and yacht and all sort of stuff by a billionaire And we're talking about the Supreme Court of the land, where impartiality is supposed to be innate, almost, frankly. And people have to show that they're above reproach and they are individuals who can be trusted, right? And he's done all, and he's not him alone. Alito has done some of this also. These are conservative judges. So when you see that, you then say, you know what, why not come kick down and beat up a country like Jamaica when I want to do it? Every country has it, and some of the people don't. And by the way, if you're in the financial services industry that I worked in, you got to give more than $100. That's a problem. You got to go to compliance. They got to sign off on it, all of this stuff. And the man is getting $100,000 in gift, and he's not even reporting some of them. He forgot. If you get private plane ride, go out Timbuktu, you not forget. Trust me, there's some things you don't forget. One thing you don't forget that you agree with them, not school, and you not forget them thing there. You're not forgetting it, especially when it's within the year when you have to disclose it. And there's no, by the way, people, they have no checks and balances for the Supreme Court of the United States. So even though it's blatant in Jamaica, like Chris is saying, it's blatant in the US too. It's not as blatant. It's more covert than overt. But eventually, when it comes to light, you sit there thinking, this is how you guys operate? Really? So, yes, Jamaica has a lot of conflict. And a lot of third world countries do. And also, part of Jamaica's history is this. So, there's somebody born Jamaica now, I'm born someone. When no one knows so-called foreigner on a business. That means I'm a Jamaican citizen. Other person Jamaican citizen. They have certain skill set. No one get involved in nothing. When I say them have to be in the island for 10 years. And they have to do X, Y, Z. And if you see somebody and they have dual citizenship and want to bond them and run them out. So the small group of elites that don't have run the country the way they want to run it, and things will never change. You're not broadening the playing field to bring in all the intellectual capital you can source and collate to allow you then to have choices. If you don't have choices, the same people are doing multiple roles because that's not going to change. But let me finish with the conflict thing. I'm saying somebody that tried call must be Peter. Peter, I'm going to take your call in a bit, actually. So the impact of having a conflict is this. That's not managed well, is that it actually undermines merit-based selection process and potentially exclude deserving players from the process and diminish the national team overall. And that's not only conflict, people, because in Jamaica, the scouting previously was very poor. The scouting was mainly Kingston and St. Andrew, maybe a few people going to Clarendon. The whole West and other parts of the island get disregard. The scouts don't go down there. I hear leaders talk about these things, and now they're trying to change that, but that's a fact. So the country is the one that don't benefit and get hurt. It's not others. People, please hit the like button. 112 people, 75 likes. The likes should be like a 115, 120, 130 because people come and go, right? It's a revolving door. So the conflict and the parochialism, and we hear the quote in terms of nationalism, which is nonsense for a lot of people. They're about their self-interest, hurts the country. And I go back to a phrase that Gunner's boss referred to. And by the way, this is the Gunner's boss video when he might burn some people. And what John Kennedy said way back when, don't ask what you can do for yourself, ask what you can do for your country, which is patriotism and nationalism. And you focus on making your country grow. Look, I've always said this. That take care of yourself and your family. But you also got to think about others when when yourself and your family are doing well. Right? So let's keep with the conflict. Now, the conflict that we see here between Rudolph, which has been referred to, and it's about, look, there's a personal conflict between the two individuals, between the Phoenix boss and between Rudolph. Started from Kasafa way back when, and you have been detailed and outlined in various YouTube discussions, right? You've heard this sort of history of this. So I'm not going to go regurgitate the history. And if you haven't, go look it up. There are other people out there who focus on this quite a bit. I don't as much. And that has permeated itself throughout everything that's now happening with that person. And people, when you have big fish in a small pond, it's an awesome responsibility, and you should manage that responsibility well. And some people do it atrociously, poorly, terribly. And the people I'm referring to, the Phoenix boss is one of the worst who does that. Big fish in a small pond, and really abuse that role he plays, and it's not a good thing for anyone, frankly. And also not for the people under his domain or under his tutelage, because you can see they're going to have implications for them, and he uses them to achieve his personal objective, not necessarily for them per se. And that's obvious. And now I'm seeing people are beating these individuals when only a blind man wouldn't have seen that before. They have to come out and do something so egregious like they did last time for them to get the flack they deserve, which is crazy. Now, back to the conflict. So we don't want to digress on the conflict. The conflict does a lot of things. It doesn't provide transparency and accountability when you're managing dual roles. It erodes trust amongst players, staff, fans, sponsors, media. And frankly, what it does is it creates a lot of bad narrative around an organization who don't need much more bad narrative. So either one of two things in solution. You'd have clear separation of roles, which means Rudolph can do multiple roles, or the JFF putting measures to mitigate the risk. Rudolph say, you know what, he loves the role, he's not changing. That's Rudolph's prerogative. It's not really his decision to make, I should think, actually. So what do? You have to establish clear boundaries between what Rudolph does as technical director and what he does at Cavaliers. And what that does is, as it relates to his responsibility and how decisions are made, those things that you set up have to be transparent, clear to everybody. This thing about keeping things opaque, or when I challenge the JFF on certain things, they're basically saying, well, Cranky always talking about transparency. No, the transparency helps you, it helps everyone, and it helps all stakeholders to understand what's happening, how it's done, why it's done, and that is done under what we call the up and up, meaning it's done appropriately. You can't hide behind this concept, which is, you talk about transparency too much. No, the transparency is a need, not a want, because it's come out now in the public domain, and you can't just ignore the lack of transparency or the lack of the conflict. You can't ignore it and say, you know what, me not care. The conflict there and get over it. No, figure out a way to manage it. So you have to implement as transparent. A couple of things. One is the big thing about this whole thing. You know what? Is people want their players in the national team. Let's be frank, right? I don't disagree with the fact that the conflict is there and it needs to be managed and it needs to be transparent. But it's two parties fighting. One party I see fighting to get to a certain role so he can get his players in the team. And frankly, when John Wall was running the under-20 team, and I don't focus on the junior team. As I've said before, I'm not talking about the junior team because we have a quota system in Jamaica. The quota system reeks me to the bone, and I'm staying away from it. I think it's unfair to people who are not born in Jamaica. I think it's ridiculous that we have a quota system. It makes no sense for citizens to be restricted or to be precluded based on some numbers game when they don't have no history of discrimination and racism against those same people. That's the only reason we have affirmative action in the U.S. It makes no sense to me. So, but as it relates to John Wall, had a relationship with this person, and this person loved that. So he would have managed what he said. Now he ain't getting that access. He might come out and beat. But he's not looking at me around, say, you know what, he's being beaten too. So a couple of things. There needs to be a process and procedures documented about the roles played in terms of Rudolph's Cavalier role and Rudolph's role with the technical committee. But that may be one thing, and we all said, Jamaica, you know what? Cranky may say that, but now go work. There needs to be independent oversight. So you have an independent body, and in Jamaica it's hard to do because it looks like every day in Jamaica knows somebody else and they might see him circle. But you try your best to figure out, how do I get an independent body to manage the conflict? You create what we call a conflict register, not just for Rudolph and Cavalier, but holistically for the JFF, which shows all the potential major conflicts you may have. You assign those conflicts to a person or a body that's independent. You put in place mitigant to manage it, and you manage those mitigants. So you also need to have an oversight body who is sort of managing over the conflict of interest and ensuring compliance with the standards that have been set. And they're going to provide, maybe you have it audited, what we call an operational audit, not a financial audit of the JFF books, but an operational audit on a periodic basis to ensure that things are working as prescribed, as promulgated, and are being done the way they should be done, right? That's what I think you can come up with, but make it clear to everybody. You put it on your website. You make it transparent. You show the audit results. You're making sure you're managing the public, but most importantly, you're managing the conflict. So no player felt that he or she's been left out because they don't play for a certain team. No player feel that they have to play for a certain team to get called for the national team. No person in society is thinking, my players won't get called because they're not part of a certain program. That should never be the case. That cannot be the case, and that needs to change. And the JFF needs to jump on this and do it because it's important to do it. And I don't think it's appropriate to have the conflict and just leave it alone and just close your eyes because it ain't working. Right? Conflict in sports does occur. The biggest conflict organization may be FIFA in a lot of different roles, in a different situation. But what you'll do is you'll improve the trust, you will lessen the scrutiny, you will enable people to say, you know what, they're trying, because some people will never accept the JFF, given who the parties are. But at least they're trying to be transparent. They're trying to be overt in their actions. They're trying to make sure things are done the right way. And even when they can't necessarily eliminate the conflicts, at least they're trying to manage the conflicts prudently and appropriately. So that's what I would say on that, on the conflict. And people, you can give me your feedback on that at some point in the discussion. You can call in. So let me just go to the Sir P discussion first. So I'm in about an hour. I said I was going to take call for an hour. So I'm going to try to go to Sir P quickly. We can talk about it. So people, I don't really watch Sir P that much. I must watch maybe 3 or 4 Sir P videos. Because when he must talk about enough things about gangs and crime and anything, they resonate, but I don't spend a lot of time on them. So if you haven't followed the Politrix, I think it's, so people have to correct me. No, before the game, I may say a lot of things wrong. People can't correct me. The Politrix YouTube channel, run by who they call Sir P, I think he's an anonymous person. And he is mainly focused on social issues, whether it's Politrix, as they call it, there's a reason for the name, focus on politics, crime, corruption, a lot of different social matters and issues, and a very informed person, actually. Because when I listen to him, he has details, meaning he has to be on the inside to know some of these things. He's either on the inside or he knows people on the inside. Because you can't have that much detail without having material provided to you or presented to you or being investigated and researched, right? That has to be the case. So he commented on the whole Leon Bailey situation. Firstly, I'll say this. Either Sir P knows football well or he does extensive research. Because the way he wove history or examples and analogies into the whole Bailey discussion was brilliant, beautiful. Loved it. You should watch the video. I'll say this in summary, which is he's not in agreement with what has transpired with Bailey in the national team. Bailey obviously has taken a break for various reasons, including his mental health. He hasn't taken a break since 2016, whatever. But the rationale provided in the 5 reasons, flying first class, not having first class, not having own room, lack of security. And I think one of them was removing Speid. Sir P wasn't buying into that. He sees Bailey, as he described, as an Irish Saxon, which is basically in my own term, my own definition, a spoiled brat or entitled brat. I mean, you're entitled, right? And his focus appears to be on patriotism and commitment of the player, because the reason given to him, the reason given cannot be the main determinant for a successful player not want to play for their national team in a major tournament. And he gave examples of Ronaldo and Messi playing for Portugal and Argentina, respectively. He talked about Yaya Toure and Mbappe playing for, not Mbappe, and Drogba and another player from Africa, I can't remember the name, playing for their national team, some of the challenges that they face. He talks about Mbappe playing for France. And what he's basically saying is that, look, when you play for a national team, that's the highest honor. When you can make your people, your national team, feel good, that's the highest honor you can have. Money cannot be a factor to prevent you from playing the national team. Not flying first class can be the factor. He believes patriotism and nationalism and being about the country is such an important thing for a person or a player that you have to succumb everything else to do so. And he mentioned in Africa, some of those players, they pay for the players' national team because their federation can't afford it. And he alluded to the federation in Africa, probably much worse than the JFF. So that cannot be the reason why you not want to play. He mentioned Messi not being accepted by Argentina until he won the World Cup and being compared to Maradona, obviously, and at the same level. And he mentioned that what he's trying to say is, look, if you play for a national team, if you're Ronaldo, if you're Messi for Argentina, Ronaldo for Portugal, Mbappe for France, your national team is most important. And your achievements are a lot of time. You do have great club achievement. The lens you're seeing through are the lens of the national team, right? And so what he's basically saying is that he cannot understand then why this person would have the so-called... No, I don't agree with everything he says about, the person should maybe absorb some of the costs, because if you have a contract with the JFF, they should pay no matter how much money you make. But he's basically saying you make so much money, you probably should pay for the whole hotel. And if you put in a 2-star hotel, you go to a 5-star hotel and pay for it because you make so much money. It's chump change for you So why using that as an excuse, right? And he emphasized and here's what he emphasized: the fact that the player chose to have a party versus playing for the national team in Copa, how big the tournament is, why anyone wouldn't want to play in that tournament. And he mentioned, and I think he's so right on this, about the coach allowing a player to go party the Friday, don't play the first game and come after that. And Grimo, you get beaten for this. I mean, your beating should not stop until you stop being Jamaica coach. The fact that you would even entertain the idea is absurd. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. And that's part of the problem we have with people like you making these, I'm going to call it dumb, you know what, decision that has implications for your team and affects morale of the team, affects the country, and affects the JFF in a negative fashion. So you've been given that autonomy, Grimo, and you have failed miserably when it comes to the specific situation. Miserably. That is not even... the absurdness is crazy. Crazy that you'd even consider that. So, look, I think Sir Peabody, the player, showing disdain for his country, doesn't want to play for the national team. I would view him saying he's a brat, and therefore that's why he's operating the way he is. He doesn't understand why somebody would do that. And by the way, Sir P has credibility. He has a ton of followers. He has 300,000 plus subscribers. People listen to him all the time. He gets a ton of views. And what has happened now, that's spread beyond the sporting community, and more is now in the environment where it's now in the everyday environment, which is crazy. Bless up, know yourself. So I'm ready to take calls now. So Peter, Mystic, everybody, we can talk about this. Well, J. Ross, some of us have been saying it, but when people like Sir P say it has more influence, has more effect. Good evening. Who am I speaking to? But when people like Sir P say it, hello? You gotta turn your radio down or your TV down or your device down. Who am I speaking to? Hello?
This is Anonymous.
How you doing, Anonymous? How you doing, Anonymous? How you doing? Before the game, how you doing? How you doing before the game? Or is it after the game or during the game? Whichever one.
Just before the game.
Can you guys hear Anonymous? Let me know if you can hear Anonymous. Last time I was talking to myself. I was listening to a play, something playing to myself, and people gave me a hard time. So let me know if you can hear Anonymous, because I think I did set it up the right way today. But let me know if you can hear him.
Yeah. So you're having a good conversation.
Yes.
Your last topic, all of it contribute to that. I remember when Maradona won Argentina the World Cup. I read an article sometime after that, where a lady was given an account of how she was having trouble in her marriage. Her husband was always unhappy. They were always arguing. And she believed that winning the World Cup saved their marriage. And I think I'm sharing that to show the importance or the value of playing for your national team, I guess, and how people and what it could do for the people, for the citizens of the country if a national team is having success.
Right.
But what I wanna contribute towards is the conflict of interest conversation.
Okay.
So you did outline what a conflict is, but I think my contribution to that is, if we keep it specific to football, and with the understanding that an MA, any MA of the 200 or whatever that exists, so whether it's TFA or GFF or whoever, they are like a franchise of FIFA, right?
Yes.
They're representatives of FIFA in the country, and FIFA does have directives that they put out in regard to conflict of interest. So either it is a conflict, either it's a perceived conflict, or it's a what's the other one? It's either a perceived conflict, a conflict, or a potential conflict. And in FIFA's narrative, they give examples and solutions and that kind of stuff. And one of the things that they have in place is a compliance department, right?
Right.
And whether you're talking about 10 people or one person, whatever the case may be, and that could assess all of these situations and see whether or not a conflict exists, a potential conflict, a real conflict, because that department has responsibilities, right?
Right.
And the expertise to deal with these things. As I reflect on some of the conversations in the past that you all have had with Rudolph Speid, I think whatever category that conflict falls in, whether it's a real conflict, a perceived conflict, or a potential conflict, I think that they probably have received guidance on that. But right. I think a lot of times what we see in the region is that we don't, transparency, what you talk about, right? We don't feel we need to explain to anybody that we have it under control.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying it is under control, but it could be under control, because I can't see how you can be a representative of FIFA. FIFA has a conflict of interest document where they give directives on how to deal with it, right? And you don't have access to FIFA's expertise to deal with that. And when I reflect on his conversations, I think what he says continually is that he does not have anything to do with the selection of players into the national team, the senior team, or anything else. He stays out of that, right? That could be true, as well as it doesn't have to be, because at the end of the day, there's no proof, right? There's no proof that that's the case. So I think all of the information that they need to deal with that does exist. The question is whether it's being implemented. Implementation is where everything goes away, right? Whether or not it's being implemented, and whether or not there's transparency for people to see that, yes, he really does not have input.
Right. Look, I as I said before, I think there are different measures one can deploy and employ to mitigate that risk. One would be the transparency. Two would be policies, procedures, and standards in place that you have to adhere to. And three, independent audits, independent governing body to oversee it and to make sure periodically it's been audited to make sure it's working as prescribed. Because I don't think his role is going to change, frankly. So I don't think eliminating the conflict is going to occur. He's not going to give up any of those roles, I don't think. And I'm not sure he's going to be forced to do so. So the next step is to make sure you appropriately mitigate the conflict so that everyone believes they have a fair chance to be the national team, and don't believe that nepotism or the conflict will enable someone to get a position that they should have had given their ability.
So you know, I think I heard you say earlier on, you think it's a real conflict, right?
Yeah, of course. Look, people, it's indisputable and undoubtedly a conflict. One cannot say that me running a team and me being part of the organization that oversees the football in the country, that there's no conflict. Whether the conflict is real or perceived, there is a conflict. And I'll give you an example. When you are in financial services and you sell a product to someone and you get commissions, that's a conflict. And if you get commissions and the commission increase because the product is more complex and more difficult to sell, that's a conflict. You know what mitigate the conflict? Mitigate it two ways. They disclose it to any recipient of that information or any person who has interest in buying it or buy the product. And two is they have a compliance department who checks to make sure the conflict is managed. And they have an audit department who audit to make sure it's managed. So they have 3 or 4 different mechanisms between the supervisor, the compliance department, the audit department, and then there's an oversight body like regulators who come in and audit some of these things. So you maybe have 4 or 5 checkpoints that help to mitigate that risk. Because the conflict is there. The question, and the conflict has to be there, given the nature of your business. The question is, how do you effectively manage that conflict?
So one of the things that I find interesting in the document that exists, if you allow me to just share this short piece with you, you know, what they describe as a real conflict is a situation where a person has an interest not in line with, in this case, with FIFA's interest that will influence his or her judgment and decision making.
Now the question: what is FIFA's interest? The most corrupt organization on earth ever. What's their interest? There's nobody more corrupt than FIFA. Sorry, so it's been proven.
So we can remove FIFA and put another organization
before the game. Let me say this: if the regulators in all the different countries where the MAs were that were part of FIFA, if they did what the US did, by investigating all those MAs, frankly, all of them, no excluding
Right.
anybody, you'd be amazed at the level of corruption in FIFA. The only people who got affected and got prosecuted and persecuted, and when they were persecuted, were the ones who run their money through the American banking system. Most of the people, did you hear anybody in Asia got that way? Africa got that way? Europe? No, it's the ones who run the money through the American banking system, so they give them the jurisdiction and the authority to pursue those individuals. So some South American people got caught up. People in the US get caught up, and people in the Caribbean get caught up. A lot of people from those parts of the world didn't get caught up in this because you know why? They weren't pursued.
I think I remember reading a ruling that the U.S. system overreached in that regard.
And exactly. So even then, some of those things may be thrown out because the system's overreach. So FIFA is more corrupt than even you and I know, even though it was world news at some point. That's without a doubt. And the corruption has been proven.
Right now, they're Googling your name.
They can Google my name because people are saying that it's not alleged corruption. The corruption has been proven. The difference between something is alleged or you don't know versus in a court of law, certain parties in FIFA got convicted for corruption. And frankly, there's a lot of questions. There's alleged corruption related to the Qatar World Cup. That's why it was going to play in December, for example, versus never played outside of summer. Those are alleged corruption. The actual corruption is when a case has been prosecuted and shown to be corrupt, and FIFA, whether it's the president of FIFA, whether it's what's his name from France, they gave him some special $2 million, whatever it was. Those things are proven, whether it's Blatter and all of them. Those are proven corruption, which you can say out and not defaming anyone. Qatar is alleged. It's proven for some of the ones that we talked about before.
Yeah, I think the conversation goes away if a process is outlined that is actually being implemented instead of saying to people that, I don't participate in this, I don't participate in that. Outline a process and provide some type of transparency that this process is what we have been implementing to ensure that doesn't happen.
Right.
And I think that should go away quite easily. So
let me say this to the Caribbean. Let me say this to the Caribbean, because people like Andre who are in football forever and have great academies they're running. Caribbean, you're doing yourself this service by not engaging people from your islands who have certain skill sets. You think you're hoarding all the resources, you're hoarding all the positions. You're not being patriotic, you're not helping your countries. You're being selfish, you're being parochial, you're not helping your country. And it's sad, frankly, because as a people, we're disenfranchised and we don't help each other just in general. Not saying everybody, but if you live in certain communities like I do in New York and you see how people operate versus how we operate, it's night and day, right? It's ridiculous the way we operate.
It is, because you've done finance for so many years that if you're now in a different country or you're let's say you're in Jamaica to go and help in some regard, whether it's in the banking system or what, I think it would be impossible for you to not utilize the standards that you have been accustomed to over the years. Is that correct?
Yeah. Look. Think about it this way. You've been taught. That's why you see.
Yes.
Look. That's why you see some of the players, like even a Leon or a Bunny Shaw, come back to the island and they get upset because the treatment is not the same. What's surprising about that is that it's not the kids who are born overseas who that's normal for them who are doing most of the complaining outwardly. Right. It's the individuals who come from the island who are in challenging environment are the ones complaining. And look, I think we gotta agree, and you and I have talked about this historically, which is sometimes the countries just don't have the resources. It is what it is, right? But how do they make best efforts to do things in a professional way? Sometimes people are not asking for you to have the resources, and they say, you know what, communicate better. And I think the Phoenix boss actually said that as part of the criteria, which is what you call it, more global communication. And by the way, his communication skills are atrocious. I'll say that. They're beyond bad. But anyway, communication is important, and people should communicate in a way which is respectful, but also discernible. You know, communicating, I don't understand what you're saying. It's got to be discernible. Go ahead.
I want to elaborate on that. You just made a point in there before you get lost, that the people from the island that goes outside and have a different experience are the ones that complain. It's the point that you just made, right?
Yeah.
Not the ones that are born outside. And I think what it is, the ones that were born outside, they come into these environments, but they're full of humility, right? So they recognize that first begin, I think there's an expression of gratitude to be able to come in and play for that country. They empathize with the situation. They know it's not the best, but it's what exists, and they kind of they don't accept it, but they understand it, right?
I think they also believe. I think they. I'll cut you for 1 second there, before the game, or during the game. I'm gonna say during the game. During the game, I think this is also for them, which is they're afraid to say anything. It's my view. I don't know this for a fact. That may seem to be not in line with what the country would expect, or say something that may be negative and they're going to be perceived. I would think so, because I know some of those players are challenged by the lack of professionalism, frankly. You can hear some of the ones who've stopped playing for Jamaica would make certain comments, very managed comments, but you can discern from that. And even when Hogrimson came in, and when people are saying, you know what, they do things the way in a certain culture, they get telling you that this is not okay. It may be cultural, but it's not okay.
Yeah,
right?
I think some of it, you're right. I agree with you with what you're saying there. But I'll add to that, I think some of it is that they are humble individuals as well.
That's
right?
That's true.
Right? And the humility allows them to handle those situations different.
Yes.
Right? So I think if you add that to the equation, it's but at the end of the day, this has always been my position, is that if you're responsible for working with young people in your country, in your community, wherever the case may be, you must, it's a prerequisite. You must want the best for those children. It doesn't matter who they are, where they come from, just like you would want for your own kids. I think that's the only standard. That's the only standard. And I think if you behave that way, then we'll work really hard to make sure that the fields are great. We'll work very hard to make sure we have the best hotels. We'll work very hard to make sure we have the things that others in other parts of the world have, because we believe that our children is just as valuable as their children. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, I agree.
And those are some of the things that people from the outside could bring to the table. That's the only standard for me. I think anything less than that is selling ourselves short, because people who see us treat ourselves like that believe that they too could treat us that way or worse.
Yeah, totally agree.
So
totally agree.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate the call, and you say I butchers people's names. Well, that happens.
No. Oh, let me correct you on that. I heard you said that twice. What you one of the, and one I can remember right now. You created a terminology called KP, I think, and you give a meaning to it.
Yes.
In describing, and that's what I was referencing.
It's KH. It's not KP.
KH. What is KH?
Kick and hope. I kick the ball up the field, and I hope it reaches destination. I don't kick the ball up the field with any purpose, knowing it's going to get to destination. I get the ball in the back. I get pressure, and I blast upfield to Antonio. I blast it to Shamar, and I hope it gets there. And by the way, it come back to me faster than I kick it, but I still kick it.
I've not seen that in a coaching course anywhere. It's not normal language in football. so that's why I flagged it. Okay.
Well, that's my interpretation of the football we play in Jamaica, at least for the national team, is kick and hope. Now I'm told that we are very fast players and we're physically exceptional, and therefore we're gonna play to our strengths. But when you hoping the ball gets to destination, that's not strength, that's a weakness. And as I alluded to at the outset of the discussion, when I talk about the Euros, every single team I've seen so far, including Scotland, are trying to play the football. Now, some may play deep. You saw today against Croatia, when the team played deep after they scored, was it Albania? Hoping that they could nick the one. But as soon as they were down 2-1, what did? They started playing football. Right? They were playing football first. Croatia's a better team at keeping the ball from them. They played possum for a little bit, but they played football when they get the football. And I don't understand us why we don't want to play football. We want to play kick and hope.
Yeah, I think as I said before, that reliance on speed and athleticism, it's I think it's a bit short-sighted, because at the end of the day, football, look, Tony Cruz get paid a lot of money to do what Tony Cruz does, and Luka Modric, and those guys who speed is not the asset. I guess mental speed might be. And SPEED. I think football is people like to say it's simple, but it's only simple once you understand the complexity of it. Right. And that's where the football education comes in. And I think if we teach the game, because look at England. You were just discussing England earlier, and some people believe, England surely believe that somehow it's their turn to win the Euros, like they do with every tournament. And I'm not so sure why they're favorites, because Portugal is in a position to feel that way. Germany should feel that way. Spain should feel that way as well. But you look at them in the first game. And there was, especially in the second half, they weren't able to keep possession of the ball. Yet they have guys who play in possession-oriented team. Right.
So but let me stop you there one day before the game. Stop 1 second. Here's what I realized in this tournament. It's very funny. Either teams who can keep the ball, you know what happens? Apart from maybe Spain, who play tiki-taka and you can't get the ball off them. The team that may be up, like England were up for the first 35 minutes. As soon as they score, for some reason, somehow their game changed. That was Croatia today. It was a ball-dominant team, right? Somehow, it's almost in the player's psyche that I have to take less risk and be more defensive, because I'm up and I can't afford to lose that, have a goal scored against me. And then they lose their aggressiveness. The other team become much more aggressive. You lose your aggressiveness, it worsens the situation, and now you're on the back foot. Happened in England against Serbia, happened today in the game with Croatia, where they got more conservative. Now, conservatism didn't work for them; it worked against them. So
I think these guys play with each other and against each other every week, right? For 10 months, and they're all capable of dominating possession at some point in time during the game. I think what it boils down to, what makes the difference with a Spain or somebody like that, or a City, is mentality, right? Their mentality is, we're going to dominate possession. It doesn't matter what the score of the game is. I don't think that's England mentality, despite the fact that they have, I think every tournament they have a golden generation. So despite they having players that play in these spaces, they still have a hard time because they're under so much pressure to win, right?
Yes.
Between 1966 and now, that's a very long time to have.
They may wait longer, because the way the tournament looks, there are some teams that look better than England at this point. So we'll see how it materializes. And look, they have good players in their team, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, a lot of those teams have a right to believe that they could win it as well. Disappointed that Croatia may go home early. I always thought for the past 8 years, 12 years, they've had a very good team and should have gotten some silverware, but they come up short again this time, it seems. So,
all right, during the game, thanks a lot for your call. I really appreciate it.
All right, man.
All right,
thanks.
Okay.
I love the logo, man. The logo is just growing on me more and more every day.
Well, it shouldn't grow on you. It should have just hit you immediately, because this logo took time to conceive. This wasn't a rush logo. This was a well-conceived logo, and it should resonate with my audience. But they don't sometimes appreciate these things. They take it for granted. But it takes time to do these things. So I appreciate the compliment.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it from day one, and it just, how you have it on both sides of you there. It's brilliant.
All
right, man.
Appreciate the compliments. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.
People,
Bye-bye.
We have 107 likes for 123 people in the watch, and I know some people have come and gone because we're up to about 140 something. People, hit the like button. Hit the like. If you like the commentary, if you like the comments, if you like the dialogue, if you like the engagement, please hit the like button. You can call in. The number is running across the screen. Welcome all callers. That was before the game with a very good insightful comments. The number is 347-728-8625. 347-728-8625. You can call into the Cranky Live Show and express your views on any subject. I see a lot of conversation between Ugent and others in the chat concerning the person who's probably one of the most famous person in Jamaica football today, and always keep himself in the news, whether good or bad. Always in the news. But yeah, we talked about a number of things. Just to summarize, we talked about West Indies cricket. We talked about the Euro. We talked about conflict of interest and possible solutions or mitigants for it. And we also talked about Sir P getting involved in football, which is unique. You are on Cranky Live. Who am I speaking to?
I'm speaking to Jason.
Jason, there's a lot of Jasons, Jason Gunnar, a lot of Jason. How you doing, Jason? Good night.
Jason from Montego Bay.
Jason from the good part of the island. The best part of the island. I want the best part of the island. Yeah, must say that. Because I've lived in that region. Eh?
You know me there, son. Me listen to your talk
Eh.
and me think, right? You see the conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
Kingston, that parish is the most conflict of interest in Jamaica. Everybody will come from Kingston into conflict of interest.
Yeah,
You get me?
I can understand the sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah, because the whole of the other parish them, not benefit of a football, as since we themselves and benefit of a music industry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything is just in the circle of Kingston. And it hurt me to see Steve come from Kingston, Butler come from Kingston, and them are go at it. They don't try to spread it right around the country. It's what them want it for themselves. Right?
Yeah. Well, I can understand the perception outside of the, I almost call it tri-state, but Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, now Portmore want to be in their own little parish. So that whole area, yes, it's almost like excluded from the rest of the island in some respects.
Yeah, it's really do. Because just from me, they grew up in a Montego Bay. It's basically 4 players I ever see make it to go on the national team.
Right.
Chopper, Charles Malcolm, Bustle, and another college youth. What's her name? I don't remember that little youth.
But Colin, before that, there were other people, people like, you may not realize it, but like Ali McNabb, for example, a part of the national program. Yeah. He was from Cornwall. He was from Montego Bay. So there have been a few players.
Yeah, it's been a 2 players, but trust me. Me see, growing up, me see quite a player from Montego Bay who, those players, if they eventually get a chance to make a national team, you know, see something different about Jamaica.
Yeah.
There are so many players who fall by wayside in a Jamaica, so they don't come from Kingston. You get me? They don't get the spotlight, them don't get the attention what they want. And down in a Montego Bay, if you don't go Cornwall College, you not see no way out for the football world.
So it's so are you also saying that within Montego Bay there's also restrictions about who gets into the major teams in Montego Bay? So you're saying Cornwall, not William, William is mainly Trelawney, but not Herbert Morrison. Some of those schools don't get opportunities also.
They don't get opportunity. They don't get opportunity. Most of the players them who make national side, they go Cornwall College.
Right. So who do you blame for this? Who do you blame for this?
Who do we blame for it?
Yeah.
Why, Frankie? I don't think that you need more brilliant mind from each parish into the federation. You know, you can't just one parish build up the federation and the government itself.
Right.
You know, if you have a prime minister, he come from Kingston. If you have a football association that can call some shots, he come from Kingston.
So, but Carla, let me push back a little bit on that and say this: isn't the fact that someone may actually born in the rural areas, grew up there, but migrate or transition to Kingston? So it may appear that they come from Kingston because the electorate area they cover is Kingston, but they actually came from maybe the country or some other area, but they just live in Kingston. So by naturally, when they achieve a position, they may be from the country, but they live in Kingston. So it appears that they're from Kingston. Isn't that part of the issue?
Yeah,
part of the rationale?
One or two. I guess 1 or 2 people who see the bigger picture leave from the rural area and go into Kingston.
Okay.
To get closer to make them dream possible.
Okay.
You know?
Right.
But honestly, Speed and Butler, me not see what Speed I do, to be honest. Because Butler have two players into the national team. Speed only has have a player in the national team. Brent and Butler have player in the national team. Right?
Right.
In the under 20, when I time Butler have about 5 to 6 players, and him still a complain like he want more in it. You
Well,
get me?
well,
So if you
maybe
leave it
maybe
up
he
to Butler,
believes all his players should be in the national team.
yeah, that me see. You know, because if me have academy, I'm 5 of my players can make the under 20, and 2 make the national team. Me say me give myself a round of applause and say yeah, me have enough.
Right.
You get me?
So here's the question for you though: if the person is seen to be the only person who has produced 2 footballers who one is playing at the highest level, the other one has an opportunity to do so, doesn't that give that person a certain cachet where they're going to say, you see, I'm the only one who have the ultimate, what we call success. Others have done okay, but I have shown based on my history that I've developed players to play at the highest level. So I should be afforded that and given the acclaim and be viewed in that same light and given a role to help do so. Does a person have that right to think that way and to operate that way?
Yeah, listen, Frankie. Some people abuse turn right,
Right.
right? Somebody can give you a respect on something, but you can turn around and abuse it by wanting more than what you must get.
Yeah.
So I think that what Segola is doing through him send to player go England. He feel like he have a right to come out and demand.
Yeah.
And you know, anytime Steve tell two player England, you're gonna see if the score settled. Then go tap and agree. Because at that he must puff up his chest about over Steve say he have 2 player England and that alone he have over Steve now.
Okay.
And Steve him produce good players too, because guess what? He might be the youngest player there in a league at Jamaica and
Yes.
win it.
That is true.
So Steve they do something good too.
But the person may say, look, their focus is not locally, it's internationally. So yes, you may have the youngest team and the youngest players, and they may win the local league, but he has, I'm gonna use a colloquial term, he has bigger fish to fry. So his focus is more international, developing players to play maybe over in some of the countries in Europe, eventually get to the highest level. That could be a different strategy he employs or deploy to achieve his objective versus what others are doing. I would think if we improve the coaching, we can get more players at the top level, which may negate some of that argument.
Well, Frankie, you know, me look on football, no matter which part in the world you play ball, is your IQ.
Yeah.
You get me? If you can play in the lowest league and you have a nice football IQ, and that can bring you to the world. Some people just get some opportunity, which part others don't get so easy.
Yeah.
So not because they play in England, that means them have a better football in IQ than the one when they play in JPL.
True, but you need a combination of the technical skills along with the IQ to inform that player in terms of the totality of that player's skill set. Because if you're brilliant, but your game is not that great, you're going to challenge to make it, right? And if your game is great, but you don't have the IQ, it'll also affect your performance. As we're seeing with some players, actually, who have been called out because people are saying they don't make good decisions because they may have the natural ability and some of the technical skills you need, but they make poor decisions, which suggests they're not the total package. Aspects of their game needs to improve.
Frankie,
Yes.
you know, most of the people that in this world where you see do something and good at it, you know, just come on the pitch and play them get it, you know. Behind the scenes, them put in extra work.
Right.
So it don't matter where it is, if you're willing to put in the extra work, it will happen.
Yeah, no, I think if you have ability, 'cause I think ability is important in people. We all aspire to play football. Well, not all, but a lot of it when we were young. We tried, probably didn't get the best coaching, probably weren't the best athlete. But also, I'm not sure we were coached how to think, probably just mainly coached how to execute on the field. I think that combination, which I'm sure is now being taught in a lot of different places, including in Jamaica, that combination is an imperative to produce some of the best footballers. And I love the fact that in Jamaica today, people like Rudolph are trying to improve the coaching by having people certify. They go through the rigors of what's required at each level, which to me can only make you a better coach, right? Some people say they're a good coach, but they can't articulate to you what makes them a good coach or walk you through the process of how you develop a player and get them to produce. I think Rudolph and others are working to do so, which they should be given credit for. But there's so many other things that happens that takes away from some of that, which people are not really seeing well.
All right. Frankie, let me tell you something about football, right?
Yes.
You see, a midfielder and the two right winger, including the forward. You see, as a midfielder, if you can understand how your left wing play and your forward play, you know what to do as you get the ball. For instance, you are the midfielder, your left wing over there, so, right? And his face pumping down there, so, right? You have a thing which part, you know, you play that means say, if you ever look over, I know say you're flinging over there, so you know same there for the alert to go and catch it. You understand? And that's why you see some people try to catch people in a outside trap, and some people they and spot with and catch it out the outside trap, right? Sometimes you have to know your right wing run or your left wing run. You get me? So most of the time in a midfielder, when you get your ball, you will see all your left wing position if him ready to run or your right wing ready to run. You get me? And you see that in a decent ball game right now. Which part is willing to make a run. Sometimes even they find. You get me?
Yes.
So it's just understanding with the player them. Sometimes they need to sit down and reason about those things. Not just take a coach training alone. Sometimes they have to sit down and talk to one another how they play. What they have to expect from each other. You get me? That makes football easier.
Yeah. No,
You can't go on.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah?
Go ahead. Sorry.
You can't if I want to feel Frankie and you don't know each other.
Right.
You get me?
Yeah.
So when say you play on a team with your teammates them, you need to talk to them or to give you the ball. Just watch them when they get the ball, when they mean to get the ball, him watch him left wing or him operate or whatsoever. Or before he get the ball, he might look on him midfielder, him winger, and he make a look on him and know say, yeah, as I get it, fling it over there, so I'm catch it. You get me? I saw ball players.
Yeah. I'll call
So,
the call. And
yeah. Yeah, respect, Frankie, respect.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the call. And hopefully, as you alluded to, the situation we have in Jamaica, which has been there historically, and apparently has not necessarily changed over time, but has gotten better, between trying to make sure everyone on the island has an opportunity to participate in whatever the process is, whether it's sports or otherwise, and we can find the best talent, not the most convenient talent, important. So thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Well, we see kind of change in the music industry, so we hope it's changing in the football. All right, respect.
Something's wrong with my mic and I'm getting feedback here. But anyway, someone had asked a question. Cranky, I'm curious about your thoughts on the mental health concern of Bailey. It seems to be always focused on the administrative aspect. Yeah, you know what the problem is, Brando? Look, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I know the reggae boys have not brought one in. It's a real situation. You know, a lot of Jamaicans don't believe in mental health situation. But when you're an athlete, it's a challenge for you because you're like everybody else. You have personal situations that are challenging. You may need help. So I don't really comment on those things as much. I'm not saying that the mental health. Sorry, my mic just fell off. I'm not sure what happened. My cord here. Can you guys hear me? Make sure you can hear me. I'm not saying the mental is not an issue, as was brought up as one of the challenge for the player. But you have so much other things around it. It seems to be a smokescreen. That's the problem. Someone like crying wolf, right? At some point, people are not going to believe you, even if it's facts and it's this real situation. And that's part of the problem. It seems like it's more of a smokescreen for all the other things that are happening. Because when you're saying part of the criteria I have is to fire the conflicted person, you lose all credibility. Whether they're traveling, the money, the hotel were all issues, your credibility just go out the door. If you had said those things and stopped there, it would have been different. Good evening. Who am I speaking to?
Lopez.
Good evening, Lopez. How are you doing? What do you have to say?
Good. How is Canada them doing? And Tony Pick and stuff like that. You remember me?
Yeah. No, I do remember Lopez actually. Lopez, how you doing? A long time, are you? Long time.
Long time. Yeah, I was overseeing my son basketball team, so I wasn't here. Yeah, I'd moved to Connecticut.
Oh, I haven't seen you in neons. That's like forever.
Yes, about 20 years or so. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a lot of those guys are moving up. So people are sorry, we have a personal conversation. Maybe we should talk offline about this, but just to mention, the brothers, one's in New York, one's in Atlanta, and Kanai, I think, is maybe in Florida or back in Virginia someplace. He'd moved to Florida and Virginia, but we're catching up here, people. We apologize, but we're catching up. Lopez is a long-time football player, was at Buffalo with all of us, with Dago and Eka George, and a bunch of different people play football. So long time, sir, long time.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on something the ladies just said a while ago. What's her name? Crystal. I mean, it's easy. These guys should know that it's easy all the time to turn around and then blame the coach who he's playing or whatever. But the coach is playing who he has.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand that when we have players that are committed to play to Jamaica, they have to go through a process where they get their paperwork in order to come to Jamaica and play. A lot of them have not gotten it, and a lot of them, Jamaica is lagging because probably word of mouth and the actual paperwork going late, etc., etc. It's not that, but he's using what he has.
Right.
Yeah, he's using what he has in front of him. And I know I was down there watching Dixon and them players there because I was down there like 3 times this year. I watched the Premier League playoff and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm not saying this kid can't play, but he needs to come out of the country somewhere, get a contract and then people will, step up his game because I see the potential in him.
Right. Okay.
But if we in Jamaica think we can pick a team out of Jamaica against high-class teams that are and go compete against them, we make a sad mistake because in Jamaica there's bad habits. Bad habits develop there. I watch them when people pass the ball or lose the ball. They don't move. They cannot pass the ball. They make tackles in Jamaica. I see that it's straight red if you're playing in leagues up here. Like some, and they even argue that how come they get a yellow card to this or whatever. Unnecessary cards and stuff like that. That's no discipline. They have to come out and see how the standard is much higher than them. Sometimes a lot of them play even, I would say, the Costa Cup and Manning Cup too long.
Okay.
They need to be somewhere overseas, probably playing college ball or whatever. They're dominating the Costa Cup or whatever. It's probably, that's too long for them. And they're behind. Because you have a lot of 17, 18-year-olds that are in America, that even in the world, that's way better than them or whatever. And we think they're that good. And when you put them up against those guys, you used to say them really I'm not saying they don't have the talent to be good like them, but it's going to take them a little while longer because they were playing in a lower division or a lower standard of ball. So it don't come out of them yet. And then they have bad habits as usual, just like what the lady says. You say it too. They should know when to dribble, when to pass, and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, the talent is there, and if we give this coach a chance, and the players them that all I hear the rumor that this player, that player coming in or whatever, we put this team together, whatever. I can see them doing something real good. I'm not going to be saying that they're going to be a better squad than the team that qualified for the World Cup back then.
Right.
But I can see the potential with them getting that good. Just give this guy a chance to get the players them, and we'll see where we take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lopez.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it, sir. I'm glad to hear from you.
Man.
I'm glad you're doing well.
Yes, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, they called me. Fat man had passed away. I didn't know if you know about that.
Yeah, no, I heard about that actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
All
sir.
right.
All right, thanks.
So take care.
Yeah, man.
All right, good.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, voice from the past. I haven't seen Lopez forever. There's so many footballers who passed through when I used to play ball at Buffalo in Brooklyn. So many good footballers. So many players who played in Jamaica. Some play for Jamaica. So it's great to hear a voice from the past. Because we don't know where some of these individuals actually ended up. So good that people are healthy, doing well, and things are working out for them. People can call into the number. It's running across the screen. Love to hear from you. Lopez, thanks for calling. Jason, thanks for calling. Before the game, thanks for calling. It's 347-728-8625. And people, if you're here and you like the conversation, please hit the like button. Please do so. Chris is asking, what percent of Jamaica players that go overseas and not sure what this. Chris, I don't know what the percentage is actually. It'd be interesting. I think the JFF should be tracking all of this. Yeah. I don't know what the percentage is, but I don't think it's a great percentage, frankly. There are a number of players who play overseas from Jamaica, local players. They don't necessarily play at the highest level, but there are a lot of them where they leave to go to college and then play in some of the local leagues, or they go directly to Europe or to the US or some other places. Some players have played in Latin America. They played in all over. Play in Turkey. Play in a lot of different countries. So we should actually say, because I know sometimes we do a lot of comparisons with the old days, and we always romanticize the old days, and we don't talk about things in the old days that didn't work. We think it was all great then, and we come across that way, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it hasn't been great in the old days, and things sometimes get better, but we're so myopic in our views, we can't see it. Are we so focused on what others are doing, we can't see it? Things have improved, actually. Cranky, why can't the coaches overseas see the talent? Look, I think for a lot of different countries, they build partnerships, they build affiliations and associations. They make sure they have their feeder clubs for other clubs in other countries, or they have associations with other countries where they have elite coaches, they have seminars, they have clinics, they have arrangements and agreements that allows coaches from those countries. And we are hearing things about Dominican Republic leveraging coaches from Spain, for example, to help improve their football. I'm an advocate of leveraging La Liga coaches or coaches from Spain because I've said this numerous times. They have the most, quote unquote, A license equivalent coaches. They seem to be all over the world. You look at the EPL, how many of them are in the EPL, and they seem to be some of the better coaches. And the tiki-taka football, which some people knock, to me, works really well. If you're a small stature, then what kind of football you're going to play? You got to keep the ball, right? You can't compete physically with some of the countries. I think the more physical countries adapt that style and leverage their physicality and their athleticism, they'll be in so much better place. Right? I am not a fan of K&H football. I'm a fan of progressing the ball up the field and try to get the ball out wide in the middle and scoring and dominating possession and resting on offense and pressure people on defense. So I may be a little bit different from how I view these things. Yeah, Chris, I mean, it's a challenge, Chris, right? I think look, there's a lot of countries in the world, over 200. There are a lot of footballers in the world. there are only so many leagues in the world, right? So many elite leagues. And if you look at the total number of players, but the total number of people in the world, we sometimes maybe it's challenged to always produce world-class football. It's a rare gem. It's like the NBA have 450 players. You have to be great to play in the NBA. And yet the 450th player is deemed to be a rux by some people, meaning that they're not great when they play outside of that forum, that environment, and they're wonderful. So I do think in Jamaica, coaching is an imperative. It's an imperative in terms of having great coaches that can help to improve the football, and it has to start from you're young to do so. People have 9 minutes left because I want to do this for 2 hours and not a minute longer. You can call in if you so choose. It's 347-728-8625. We have had 3 calls so far. Hopefully, with more we call in. Please hit the like button if you like the program, if you like the dialogue, if you like the engagement. I love having a conversation with you, and I appreciate you being here. But you also got to subscribe, and you also have to. Well, you don't have to, but I hope you subscribe, like, but also share it with your friends, with your families, so I can improve my subscriber base. It's important that if one is trying to disseminate their message, that message gets as far and wide as possible. And this is not just a Jamaica program, even though the major content we discuss have some Jamaica implications to it. I'm trying to make this more of a more global conversation. Good evening. Who am I speaking to?
Ika Reeks.
Ika Reeks, good night. How are you doing?
Good night. Not bad at all.
So what do you want to talk about, Mr. Reeks?
I heard you mention something a little bit about the feeder program type thing.
Right.
And if you remember, I believe Mount Pleasant have a agreement with, is it Sheffield United, I believe? And that in itself to me is really good.
Right.
And it kind of puzzles me some of the times, to see that Mount Pleasant isn't as successful.
And what in exporting players and selling players?
Yes, and where they're finishing it, because to be honest, I think they have some of the best resources in terms of club on the island. Even their training ground is really nice.
But here's a question for you, Eco. Do they feel the need to sell? Because it looks like Mount Pleasant is built to win, not necessarily built to export talent. Now, I think Cavaliers is built to export talent. They have the youngest team in the league. They sell a number of players. That's how they finance themselves. They have a booster, underwriter for Mount Pleasant. So is it part of their strategy to develop players and sell them, or just to develop players and win the league?
I see your point here.
And someone says Charlton they have the agreement with. Sheffield, Charlton. Yeah.
Charlton, yeah. Was Charlton Athletic. Yeah. Because even the striker there, Campbell, I believe, he went over there for some experience. So that in itself is really good. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That in itself it's really good. And I believe some other JPL teams should try to have something like that going on. Yeah.
Well, I think every team in the JPL should try to get some of arrangement. If their aspirations, if the JPL club's aspirations is to develop players and sell them on, get more resources, which would further development, because you got to finance yourself, and it's expensive to finance a team where you're not generating a lot of revenues from TV, sponsorship, and other sources. So I think each team, whether it's merchandising, whatever their source of revenues are, should try to maximize those revenues, including player sales. And the affiliations will help, because you hope you're going to get not only football expertise, but some monetary consideration to help with your program.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's all I had.
All right, Iko. I appreciate the call, sir. And have a great evening.
Yeah, man.
Thanks a lot.
Same to you.
All right, thanks. All right, people, we have 6 minutes left. You want to call in now? The number is on the screen. It's the 347 number. And by the way, I forgot who sent me that Sir P article. Someone who was part of this whole environment sent it to me. The name is slipping me now. So I appreciate you sending that to me. I listened to it. I found it really interesting. I know Sir P is well followed And we'll see what the public reaction is to this, actually. Should be interesting. What is the public reaction? Be interesting to see what the public reaction is. And also what the management of the player and the player himself, how they react to Sir P, because Sir P is very influential, right? I don't follow Sir P a lot. The video comes across me on YouTube and I'll listen to it a lot. I'm amazed at the detail of information that person has at their disposal. I have no idea how anyone can get that information. Shows that most things in Jamaica are probably not as confidential as one think they are. But the person is well informed and he took on this thing, and I'm sure he's going to get feedback, positive or negative, but he's going to get feedback. And lots of it. All right, people, what may I have left? 4 minutes. If you want to call in, please do so. I'm going to close out the program by saying a couple of things, actually. One is I appreciate you being here and part of the dialogue. I appreciate you liking or subscribing or sharing. These programs can only work with your involvement, because we won't be here talking to ourselves if you weren't here. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the participation, because sometimes you're here talking, you're talking to a screen, and talk to someone physically. It's different when you're in a TV studio, and you bounce information off each other, actually. I'm going to try to get more panelists and guests on, but for this first month or month and a half too, I'm going to do this sort of a little bit solo in a lot of instances where I can get guests. I'll try to bring them on. I have one or two lined up, but they're going to come on later at some point. I'm hoping to do the coaching, the coach's corner that I mentioned before, and hopefully start this next week. I also have some ideas, and they'll get implemented as we progress and build up subscribers base, build up likes, build up share, and you tell your friends and family to help me grow this and be part of the conversation. It's important that I learn from you, and hopefully I can provide information that you can also leverage also, right? It's key. No man is an island, and we can't, even though I know some people are here in the public domain, sounds as if they do everything by themselves. None of us function solely as people. People need people. This world is about people. And a lot of times people have money, they think, and I hear, and Sir P mentioned this, the whole money thing in Jamaica, as if money is everything. Money is important when you don't have any. Money takes us on a lesser role when you do have a little bit of money. It's the most important thing when you don't have it. A lot of things bad, a lot of things great are about money, but just as many bad things are about money, right? So we all work, and it's not the money, because sometimes people confuse the money itself with what the money provides, whether it's opportunity, whatever it is that money provides, because we have basic necessities in life, and we need money to gain those necessities. But what's interesting about that is, because we can't do everything for ourselves to have those necessities, we need some mechanism and some currency to allow us to gain those things, and money provides that, right? But we shouldn't make, and I've always said, when I was in the UK, I used to argue with people there. I used to give them a hard time to say, money is the most important thing in life, and they would lose their minds, because in the UK, they're very socially conscious. But then I would ask them, why are you here at work with me for 15 hours a day if you're saying your family is the most important thing? Why are you spending less time? Wouldn't you spend more time with the most important thing in your life? Now, I'm sort of contradicting myself a little bit here, because it's what the money affords them while they work 15 hours and not there with their family where they spend 6-7 hours with. But at some point, when they gain enough of that capital, they'll rethink how they operate and how they live, and they'll change how their behaviors, right? They'll realize that, as people will say, I can't take the money with me. The money doesn't give me the family love I'm looking for, engagement I'm looking for, because when you go work 20 hours a day, you don't see your family. And when they get older, you're wondering how they grew up. So it has to be a balance. I'm not saying money is not important, because it's extremely important. It may be the most important thing. But when you gain the money, you should also think about what I can do for myself, also what I can do for others, and how I can help others. We don't live here on this planet by ourselves. We are here for a reason or purpose. We don't know what that is. But while we are here, we should contribute to society at large, help our fellow human beings, and try to be a good person. So I'm going to sign off with that tonight, because I think sometimes we're too cantankerous. We're difficult. we make each other's life difficult. Doesn't mean you can't challenge, doesn't mean you can't criticize, doesn't mean you can't engage, but do it with respect. So people, thanks for being here. I'm gonna leave tonight by saying I'm back here tomorrow, which is Thursday. Please join me. We talk about more sports and more update. And I know some of you are going to join when I call the, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation about Sir P, which is, you mentioned people are bandwagonists. I know some of you are going to become what we call bunwagonists, means Sir P are bun people, and enough people are bun people based on what Sir P say. It's just how life is. So people, thanks for being here, and I enjoyed the conversation with you, and good night. Peace out. Frankie Life is the best to be now. For the best sports talk, and it's free, yo. Frankie Life will be your guiding light by keeping you informed both day and night. Frankie Life, tell them. Frankie Life, heed them. Frankie Life, want them. Frankie Life. From the courts to the field, we'll never lose because Cranky has the hottest news. With expert analysis, we break it down. Our in-depth coverage is best in town. Cranky Life, tell them. Cranky Life, heed them. Cranky Life, want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life, where the sports is spicy and where we keep the discussion lively. Cranky Life, get to know the name because Cranky analysis is never lame. Cranky Life, give me my Cranky Life. I want my Cranky Life. Must have my Cranky Life. Whether it's football or track and field, Cranky is at the wheel. So join the journey through victory and defeat, and subscribe and don't miss a beat of Cranky Life. Tell them, Cranky Life. Heed them, Cranky Life. Want them, Cranky Life. If you're from England or USA, from Kingston or Bombay, from Kenya or Canada, Lagos or Havana, visit Cranky Life. Tune into Cranky Life. Like up Cranky Life. Subscribe to Cranky Life. Cranky Life coming to you on weekdays. Cranky Life sometimes on Sundays. Pull up a chair and take a seat because Cranky will always bring the heat. Cranky Life. Me say fi tell them Cranky Life. Me say fi heed them Cranky Life. On them Cranky Life. Cranky Life will be around. Cranky Life is the best in town. Me say fi heed them. Me say fi want them. Me say fi heed them. Want them, heed them, want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life. Heed them. Want them. Heed them. Want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life. Heed them. Want them. Heed them. Want them. Heed them. Want them. Cranky Life. Cranky Life. Cranky. Heed them. Want them. Heed them. Want them. Heed. Want. Heed. Want. Heed them.